What's up, everyone? I'm D. Santos. Quick heads up, there are major spoilers for the first season of Widow's Bay, especially the ending. So if you've already watched it, keep this in mind. Those old movies weren't just simple records of the island. And after the bell rings again, the question gets a lot worse. Is the danger only in the curse? Or is there someone out there who still knows how to turn a person into an offering? While we wait for the second season, I'm gonna bring a new Widow's Bay theory every week here, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Let's get into the video. Down there, Dale finds those old films showing a person being prepared to become an offering. And then a phrase appears that carries a lot of weight. Peer committee. Take a look at that. It wasn't the island choosing someone out of nowhere. There were people from there putting someone else into the ritual. And look at the dirtiest part of all this. The video tries to sell that as if it were fair. And the worst part is, it wasn't just a video meant to scare the victim. There was one tape talking to the person who was going to become the offering, and another for the one conducting the ritual. In other words, it wasn't just some old video, it was an organized ritual. The island didn't just choose a victim, it also tried to make that person believe they deserved to be there. And that's where this committee becomes even more important, because after Kenny, we understand better how that pact works. The guy disappears and the storm stops. Look, that's no small thing. The island seems to accept that death. So this wasn't something buried in the past. It was the way someone made the island go back to sleep. And if there was a committee choosing who would become the offering, then things get even more serious. Because maybe the committee didn't just disappear. Maybe it kept hiding within some families. Now, this is just my own theory, okay? The show hasn't confirmed this yet, but if that secret made it to today, it didn't need to be spread all over the island. It was enough for an old family to know that the bell didn't ring just because. And then, when it rang again, it wasn't just noise, it was a demand. For most people, that turned into panic, but for those who knew the ritual, it could be a sign of what was coming next. And look at Dale. His face there is that of someone who just figured it out along with us. So, at least in his case, I don't see someone who already knew that part of the ritual. With Tom, things get more complicated because the show still hasn't revealed how much he knew about all this, or if he really didn't know anything. But his plan connects directly with this theory. Tom wants to bring Widow's Bay back to life. He wants tourists coming in, the city full, money flowing, and above all, he wants to give Evan a better life without taking the kid away from there. But that's where the problem lies. For someone who comes there as a tourist, all of that might just seem like part of the experience. But after those movies, we know it wasn't just a legend. If someone still understands that ritual, anyone coming from outside walks in without knowing a thing. And there's a part of those tapes you just can't ignore. They didn't calm the person down. On the contrary, fear was part of the offering. The offering had to remain in that state until the time of collection. So it wasn't just about locking someone up and that's it. There was a proper way to turn that person into an offering. And if that ritual is still alive, the first clue might be the bell, because when it rings, anyone who doesn't know anything panics. But someone who already knows the rule, maybe not. Maybe that person looks at the bell and thinks, all right, it's started again. That's the kind of reaction I want to see in the second season. And there's something else I want to watch for in the second season. Who actually hears that bell? Because at the beginning, it wasn't just Tom. Patricia and Rosemary heard it too. And Bryce got scared because that bell shouldn't even be ringing. So maybe the bell doesn't call just anyone. Maybe it calls people who have some old connection to that pact. And that's where a pretty strange possibility comes in. What if Tom, Patricia, Rosemary, or other people who hear the bell are descendants of those old families? Families tied to that so-called committee of peers. People who, way back then, helped choose who would become the offering. We still can't confirm it, but if this ritual has continued up to our days, someone could have carried that secret for generations. And that also makes me suspicious of PJ because it could just be a coincidence. Maybe, but look at the path that kid made Evan take. First, he already put Evan close to the boogeyman's house. Then he ends up leading the group right to that room underneath the island. And in the end, the one who ends up trapped there is Kenny. The storm stops. So, to be honest, that's just too much of a coincidence in exactly the right place. I'm not saying PJ knows everything, but if there are old families connected to the committee, could he be a descendant of someone who is already part of that? Or is he just repeating without understanding a path that the island set up a long time ago? And it doesn't have to be someone who looks like a villain, right? It could be exactly the person who seems the most normal in there. The person who hears the bell, understands the message, and tries to make everyone believe that everything's under control. To me, that's the danger. Because if someone still knows how to make an offering, they also need to know how to cover their tracks afterward. So if someone disappears again, I'm not just going to look at the person who panicked. I'm going to look at the one who wasn't that surprised. Because on an island like this, sometimes calm is scarier than fear. Because if I'm right, there are people here who don't see that ritual as something absurd. They see it as part of the island, as something that's always been that way. Now tell me, for you, were those movies just a thing of the past, or is there still someone here who knows how to use that knowledge? Because for me, after that ending, this story is far from over. And if you don't want to miss any updates, subscribe to the channel, because I'm always bringing reviews, theories, and movies like this here. I'm Guy Santos, and I'll see you in the next video.